All right, there we go. All right. Good
What,
evening.
teacher?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Mayor and Council of Princeton, New Jersey. It is June 13th, 2022. Madam Clerk, could we have the meeting statement, please?
Yes, Mayor. Notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act and state regulations governing remote public meetings, including the time, date, and location of the meeting, and clear and concise instructions to the public for accessing the meeting and making comments. In addition, the agenda and all related materials were posted electronically and made available to the public on Princeton's meeting portal in advance of the meeting.
Thank you. Can we do the roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Perrone-Lambros? I see her.
See her. Michelle, can you hear us?
Here.
Here.
There you go.
Ms. Niedergang?
Here.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Fraga? Ms. Sachs?
Here.
Mr. Newland?
Here, and sorry about that last outburst. Won't
Mayor
happen
Frida.
again.
Mayor Frida?
Here. All right. Thank you, Dolores. Council announcements or reports. Let me just share one thing. The planning board had sent us a copy of a resolution they had passed concerning Wanda Gunning. And let me just read most of this because I think it deserves to be read. Whereas quality public service demands wisdom, energy, skill, patience, and commitment in advancing the public good. And whereas Wanda S. Gunning demonstrated all of these qualities and more as she served the Princeton community from 1985 to 2021 in the following capacities: Princeton Borough Historic Preservation Committee, 1985 to 1995, Chair 1987 to 1994. Princeton Township Historic Preservation Commission, 1987 and 1988 as part of the ad hoc commission, and 1988 to 1996, the Historic Preservation Commission. Site Plan Review Advisory Board, 1987 to 1994, Chair 1991 to 1994. Regional Planning Board of Princeton and Princeton Planning Board, 1998 to 2021. The Chair, 1999 to 2000, 2004 to 2006, and 2010 to 2021. Vice Chair, 2001 to 2003, and 2007 to 2009. Whereas Mrs. Gunning's professionalism, common sense, and encyclopedic knowledge of Princeton's history and neighborhoods earned her the respect and affection of staff, elected officials, and colleagues who worked with her over the decades. And whereas Mrs. Gunning served as Planning Board Chair, Vice Chair, Landscape Subcommittee Chair, and member of the Master Plan Committee, at all times pursuing a vision for Princeton as a vibrant, welcoming, diverse community that continues to grow and change, valuing architectural integrity and a human scale. And whereas Mrs. Gunning's dedication to planning, design, and historic preservation, along with and her insight into all things Princeton, informed her insightful approach to review of development applications and the establishment of policies for regional and community planning. And whereas Mrs. Gunning contributed to and advanced a wide range of goals, principles, and recommendations enumerated in all elements of the community master plan, helping to guide Princeton into the 21st century. And whereas Wanda's keen interest in the community, selfless commitment of time and skill, and steady leadership over many years benefited Princeton immeasurably. Now, therefore, be resolved that the Planning Board of Princeton expresses its sincere gratitude to Wanda S. Gunning for her extraordinary leadership and dedication over decades of service to the community, and extends all best wishes for the future. Anyway, I just thought it'd be appropriate to share that because she has committed so much time and energy to the community. So, all right. Thank you. Michelle, I think you were trying to put your hand up as I started to read that. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry for my technical difficulty. If you can hear me all right, I just wanted to mention about from the Recreation Department, the pool is going to be open full time starting Monday, June 20th. And I want to mention that, we provide financial assistance to those who need it. So if you're interested in joining the pool and have any financial difficulties, you can go to the Recreation Department. fill out an application, and they'll work with you to make it financially feasible for you and your family to join. We also, have scholarships for some of the summer programs, and there are still summer programs, youth programs available. There are openings there. Most of the swim lessons are full, but there's a lot that's available. So please check that out. And lastly, we're pretty full, but we're still looking for a few more lifeguards. So if you're looking for a summer program, particularly for the college age group, so we're looking for that. So that's it from the Recreation Department. And I also want to mention that, the Special Improvement Districts named the Princeton Business Partnership, the PBP. I'm getting used to saying that. They are having their board meetings now every other week. And we do have a website. It's a temporary one, but it's something. It's princetonbusiness.org. We will be publishing minutes there. There will be the listings of the meetings, and very exciting that we're executive director search is going well. We've got a lot of applicants. So if you know anyone interested, please do forward resume. And lastly, I want to say that we're forming some committees, and anyone and everyone is welcome to join a committee. So please check out the best places, either reach out to me or go to princetonbusiness.org, and we'd love to have more people involved. Thanks. That's it.
Thanks, Michelle. Other council reports or announcements? Okay, great. How about public comments for items not on the agenda? So this is anyone from the public that has something to speak about that is not an item on the agenda. And you have 3 minutes, and just say your name and address when we call upon you. And Adam, I think we have a hand up.
Okay, bringing over Karen.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen O'Connell. I live on Hibbin Road in Princeton, and I would like to make a comment, and I'm reading it. Neighbors of Frog Hollow, Mercer Hill, and the Western section wrote the mayor and council in March, and again in May, requesting that the designation of area in need of redevelopment be rescinded for the 10 non-contiguous properties that make up an A&R, which was granted to the Princeton Theological Seminary back in 2018. This designation was granted by resolution specifically for the purpose of bringing PTS's married students onto their main campus, a project that has long been abandoned. After we formally made the request to rescind the A&R back in March, the project to complete the sale of 5 of the properties has sped up dramatically. PTS will soon demolish all the historic buildings on Stockton and Hibbin Road, some dating back to the 1820s, to clear the way for major redevelopment. We want to have a public discussion on the rescinding of the A&R before it's too late. I can see that mayor and council have a lot on your plate, but this demolition and redevelopment will have a major impact townwide. Therefore, we would like to know when we can expect the timeframe for the discussion for rescinding the A&R to be on your agenda. Thank you.
Karen, thank you very much. Yeah, and in fact, that'll be on the agenda for the next council meeting, which is I believe the 27th. So it'll be there then. So feel free to let everybody you know that's interested in the topic to tune in then, and we'll have an opinion from our attorney as to what is the process to rescind. Can you rescind? I don't. Anyway, we'll get into it then. So thank you.
Fabulous.
Sure. Are there other members of the public with a comment on something that's not on the agenda? All right, seeing none. We are going to move to, we have a presentation on the Princeton Sanitary Sewer Investment Plan, and our sewer design engineer, Andrew Philippi, and Mr. David Goldfarb, the Sewer Operating Committee Chair, I believe are our first guest for this evening to make this presentation. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll start. This is David Goldfarb. I live at 1 Markham Road, Apartment 3E in Princeton. I'm the chair of the Princeton Sewer Committee. I serve along with Eve Niedergang as a member, not just a liaison, and Valerie Haynes. And I'm also Princeton's representative to the Stony Brook Regional Sewerage Authority, which I mention only because at the end, if there are any questions regarding SBRSA or any other aspect of the sewers beyond our presentation, I'm happy to answer anything that I can. Before Andrew makes the presentation, I just want to remind everybody of your commitment to repair the sewer system, for which we're all very grateful. But we understood all along that that commitment was contingent on the burden on ratepayers not being too great. And we're going to show you that the burden is modest. It's not, nothing is free. But when you consider the burden, keep in mind that our rates have been artificially low because we have had many years of deferred maintenance, and we're committed now to catching up. We're ready to do it. All we need is your endorsement. We have a good team in place, led by Dominic Itzi, our sewer operations manager, and Andrew Philippi, our sewer engineer. We know that our sewers are leaky. We're going to find the leaks and fix them, and we're going to get on track to keep our sewers in shape indefinitely. And that's something that we should all be proud of. So I'm going to ask Andrew now to make our presentation to you.
Thank you, David.
All right, so thank you, David. Starting off, just a quick overview of kind of the cost basis for this work. So looking into the long-term capital investment needs that we envision, both for kind of our maintenance level, we have to do these things to keep up with the system, but then also a little bit of deferred maintenance. So going through these, we're anticipating on average $3 million per year expenditures to replace our mainline sewer pipes. These are the public pipes running through the right-of-ways and easements that are municipally owned. And we're assuming that these pipes have a 50-year lifespan. And after those 50 years, on average, they'll need to be replaced. So this is kind of not so much a repair as eventually the pipes just get worn out and they need to be replaced. So this is kind of, everything in this presentation is kind of averaged in industry standards. So we can't get too lost in the weeds. Next section, another additional $3 million per year for repairs. This is not full replacement of lines, but point repairs and I&I, that's inflow and infiltration reduction work. So infiltration and inflow, this is groundwater and surface water that actually leaks into the sewer, increasing the volume of water in the sewer system, thus increasing our costs for treatment. So as we reduce the inflow and infiltration to the system, the I&I, not only are we repairing the system, but we're also reducing our treatment costs. Additionally, there are what we call trunk lines. These are the larger diameter pipes, so 18 inches up to 36 inches in diameter. They are generally, they'll have a longer lifespan because you have fewer connections into them directly because they are the larger pipes. And so because you have less work going on, they're a little bit more stable. An additional $400,000 per year for repairing and replacing the pump stations. And this is assumption, or we're using the assumption here that a pump station will last about 30 years, which is actually maybe a little bit longer than is best industry practice, but we've got some pretty old pump stations in our system that have lasted pretty well. And I think that we're gearing up to design really resilient systems. So that's where we're going for this assumption. And then, of course, we have another $350,000 a year just to replace vehicles and equipment as they age and get worn down and need to be replaced. On top of those kind of standard costs that we envision year over year over year, there's this additional $3 million per year to catch up on the deferred maintenance that David had mentioned just a few minutes ago. So particularly, we're looking at 6 pump stations that are far past their estimated or anticipated design life. And as well, there are some trunk lines that have gone far past their anticipated useful life. So over on the right-hand side, we just got a rough breakdown of kind of the proportion of these costs. Next slide, please. So breaking this out into kind of a look forward, we've got this roughly $9.5 million of annual expenditures anticipated. Again, this is average, right? Year to year, it might be higher, lower by a few million, depending on how the projects are going to line up. But this 9.5 average is what we're anticipating. And this goes until 2031. So this kind of 10-year period of making up for lost time. After 2032, we're anticipating that kind of make up 3.5 million is going to be taken care of. So now we're back to our kind of maintenance level. This is the step that we should have been doing all along, work at about 6.5 million. And then I kind of hinted at this before, but as we replace our infrastructure based on improved technologies, improved techniques, improved understanding of the failure mechanisms of sewer pipes, we anticipate that estimated useful life of our infrastructure is actually going to increase from 50 years up to 75, closer to 100. And additionally, we'll be reducing the inflow and infiltration. So as both of those things coincide with the work that we're doing, we anticipate that we will see some cost savings included. We didn't include that in our analysis because it's not something that we can necessarily rely on, but we do anticipate seeing some sort of windfall in that way. Next slide. So based on all of that capital expenditure, we're expecting to see an increase in user fees. But I want to point out that our user fees are not just based on capital expenses. So the vast majority of what our users pay on an annual basis is actually for treatment. This is all of the wastewater flows to the Stony Brook Regional Sewerage Authority where it gets treated. We get charged for each gallon of wastewater that's treated at that plant. And that, of course, gets distributed to all of our users. So over the course of the next 10 years, this is the period where we are doing all of our catch-up work. The anticipated treatment costs are going to be about 50% of the user fee basis, and the capital projects are going to be about 34% of that user fee basis. Now, this is the debt service, so not strictly the total capital cost, but we're looking at this 10-year cycle. So that's how it breaks down. And then, of course, there's the operations and maintenance, 16%. That includes salaries of all of our sewer staff. And I wanted to point out that our treatment costs were held constant in our projection because we don't know how much I&I reduction we might get. We also don't know if the treatment costs for the plant are going to go up. All of that is based off of how much additional flow gets sent to the Stony Brook plant. And we're only one constituency of Stony Brook. So depending on how well our program goes, how well our neighbors' programs go, we didn't want to add all of that potential error and unknowns into the analysis. So next slide. Okay, so when we look at our user fees in Princeton for a single family residential home, our average flow or our average daily water usage for one of these homes is 135 gallons per day. So if we go based off of that average of 135 gallons per day, they would end up spending this year $435 for their sewer bills. So if someone uses less than 135 gallons per day on average in their home, if they practice water conservancy, then their bill will be lower, right? Conversely, if they use more water, their bills will be higher. But for our average, we're seeing an increase year to year as we're implementing our new program of 18 to 42 to, on average, $50 per year additional each year until we get to 2031. Now, this takes us from $435 annual average fee to an $841 annual average sewer fee. At the 2031 year mark, that meets the end of our 10-year catch-up period, as we call it. So that's really the theoretical maximum, so long as we, meet that schedule. So as our capital expenditures will then come down in 2032, we wouldn't anticipate further increases in the sewer rate on an annual basis. Mm-hmm. David, you have a question?
Yeah, I was looking further on in the agenda at the capital ordinance for sewer related costs that we have on the agenda for tonight. And I noticed that the useful life periods are much shorter, 15 or 20 years rather than the 30, 50, even 100 years that you're talking about in this presentation. And I'm curious if there are limits in terms of how much we can spread out the capital payments, under state law, or are there ways that we can spread it out further, which would then make the increase here a little less steep?
So we do have the option to finance over longer periods based on the longer anticipated or expected useful life of these infrastructure projects. And this is really more of a Sandy question, but her practice has been, or rather Princeton's practice has been, even when we have infrastructure projects that have a longer than 20-year lifespan, that we still bond for 20-year periods because we end up paying it off sooner. We spend less money in the long run. We keep a good bond rating. We've got a very good bond rating at the moment. And so that practice of paying bonds off quickly in the long run saves us money as compared to the longer bond periods.
And I can jump in also, Andrew, to help you out a little bit. The useful lives are set per the local bond law. So the ordinances are prepared by our bond counsel. So even though the infrastructure may last longer, by law we can only bond over the useful life that's in the actual bond law.
Oh, okay. So, but I assume that period might vary depending on what kind of work is being financed.
That's correct.
Just like the useful life was varying based on Andrew's, presentation, that the
Right.
really big pipes last longer. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I believe I've said everything I wanted to say for this slide. So next slide. All right, so on this slide, we took a little poll, I suppose, of neighboring communities' current annual user fees. For this analysis, we kept the 135 gallon per day annual average water usage in Princeton, and we just, plopped that property down into a different community. And if someone in Riverton or Hamilton or Trenton were to use 135 gallons per day, what would their fee be? So we've got this in order, lowest to highest. You'll see that Princeton is shown here twice to show our current fee as well as the fee in 2031. Now the fee in 2031, of course, all of the other municipalities are showing today's dollars, and we don't know what their plans are going forward. But as a comparison for where we stand and where we might stand amongst our neighbors, this is just kind of an example of that. I do want to say that Princeton is seen in the state as a leader in environmental stewardship and reform. And I know that this is a program that is vital for us to implement to consistently be good stewards of our environment and of our infrastructure, right? We're catching up on this work. We're paying more now so that we don't pay more in the future. And I think that a lot of other communities are going to make that same turn, that same realization in the future as well. Of course, that's speculation. I can't say anything officially that anyone's doing anything, but I think that we will be seen as a leader in that sense. So next slide. So with that, I guess, Dave, if I unintentionally skipped anything, please chime in. But if anyone else has any questions, please feel free.
Yeah. David, do you have anything to add, or should I just go to questions?
I would just, first of all, thank Andrew and just mention that, again, Andrew touched on it, but the increases that we're showing here are only to reflect the impact of the additional work that we're talking about here. So therefore, the increases do not include things like salary adjustments. They also, as Andrew mentioned, don't include anything from Stony Brook, over which we have no direct control, although I'm watching on Princeton's behalf. So please don't come back in a year and say you told us that the rate was going to be this and now it's something different. We have reviewed the impact with Sandy, and that's where these numbers came from. But again, it's only the additional capital investments associated with bringing our system back into shape and the additional staffing required to operate the system responsibly over the long term, most of which we've already accomplished. The staffing is basically at the level where it will be for the indefinite future.
Thank you, David. Mia.
Did I miss it, Andrew, at the beginning? Did you talk about what we're actually paying for the 300 gallons when it gets to the treatment facility because of the I&I? Did I totally miss that? Or
so the 300 gallons per day, that's the New Jersey DEP's assumption for single family homes usage. In Princeton, our average usage based on the water meter data, so that the actual water that goes into the home, is 135 gallons per day. It was really only slightly touched on, but a large part of the work that we're doing is the I&I reduction, which is prevention of groundwater and surface water from getting into the sewer and increasing our treatment costs. So yeah, a significant portion of the work we'll be doing is to reduce our treatment and reduce that cost.
because I think the public really needs to understand that we're paying for almost double essentially because of the I&I, which our David, who's our Jeremiah of the sewer system, has been telling us for many years. And what's exciting about what you're doing now is finally, we're actually listening to David and we're, getting things under control. But this is essentially deferred maintenance from a very long time of not listening to David, not doing what we should. And, so it's going to be a little bit of pain in the short term, but the town and all of the residents stand to benefit enormously financially. So, we have to step up and do this. I think that's the most important point. And in terms of a leader in sustainability, we can't be a leader in sustainability when we have that level of I&I. It's embarrassing. So, not to mention expensive. So.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And actually, just to give it hard numbers, well, round numbers, on average, for the last 3 to 4 years, 60% of the flow that has gone into the treatment plant has been I&I, and only 40% of the flow that we pay to treat has actually been sewage produced in the homes and businesses in Princeton.
Okay.
David, you had your hand up, but then it is down.
You just answered the follow-up
Yeah.
question.
Okay.
I wanted to
Yeah, but
ask.
we're going to go, Andrew. I want to get the people in order. So even though David has Michelle's had her hand up for a bit. So let's go to Michelle.
Thank you. This is a great analysis. I really appreciate all the time and effort that's gone into it. I just, to simplify from my thinking on it, am I right in thinking that for the next 9 years, it's about $3 million additional over and above what will be on a regular basis maintenance and repairs and infrastructure investment? So the 6.5 million, in other words, after 2031 will be a consistent, which I don't know what we've done in the past, but going forward, we need the 9.5 million, almost 10 million per year for 8 or 9 years. So it's about another 3 million over and above what normally we pay. Is that, I'm gonna.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So,
Okay.
so one way of looking at it is that we anticipate having a need, right, to properly maintain and upkeep our system of $6.5 million every year.
Every year.
Just in capital investment.
Yeah.
And
And
now
so,
make up, sorry.
yeah, right. Go ahead. Finish your
And then
thought.
to make up for the work that we haven't been doing, that we should have been doing, we need to
Right.
spend an additional $90 million. And instead of spending that all in 1 year, both practically that's not really doable, but then also just because the hit, we're spreading that out over a 10-year period.
And
so
an additional $30 million, because it's 3 million over 10 years is the additional.
yes. Oh my gosh. 30 million.
It's 30 million. It's still scary. It's still a lot of money.
Right.
All right,
Yeah,
that's the
additional 30 million for a total over 10 years of 90 million. My bad. So yeah,
Okay.
an additional $3 million per year for the next 10 years.
So thinking of, how, to pay for this, and I see the difference in rates and so on, but I just want to add to this thought in the whole mix is, with affordable housing and other, building that comes on, online, that doesn't really add to the infrastructure costs. I mean, it's not like the additional connection fees and other fees that we'll be collecting are going to add additional. I mean, this is going to cover us for all of the infrastructure. And I've asked this question before, but I want to ask it in the public realm so that, the residents can really understand how this impact's going to be going down the road, with the Thanet site and other sites coming online. Can
Right. So,
respond to that, Andrew?
oh, certainly. We have, I suppose I'll say, we have two revenue sources for sewer infrastructure work. We have the annual sewer user fee, and we also have the connection fees. The connection fees really are a very small portion of our annual revenue. It's different from year to year, but on average about $350,000 compared to an anticipated expenditure of $6.5 or $9.5 million per year. So all of the rest of that money is being made up of the user fee. User fee is strictly based on water meter usage. So how much water any given property is using, because after it's used, it goes down into the drains, right? And this is accounting for irrigation based on metering the water in the winter months when folks aren't using that for irrigation. So it's strictly the water use, and right, it's not an additional usage on the infrastructure. The connection fee is meant to kind of account for that additional infrastructure need.
Good. Thank you. I wanted to make sure it was clear that we are going to be covering all the additional costs of everything that's, happening in town with this additional investment. We need to make it happen. We need to stay committed to it. So, I appreciate it.
Thanks,
That's
Michelle. Eve?
Thank you. And thank you, Andrew, and David, and Dominic as well, and Deanna and Jim for your support for this. It's been a long process that the sewer committee has been working on. And I just want to touch on something that both me and, well, probably Andrew and David really talked about, which is, being environmental stewards. The idea that what is arriving at Stony Brook to be cleaned, that 60% of that is clean water that we are then running through the plant, including chemicals in it, in the effort to clean water that would have been clean had we kept it out of the pipes to begin with, is really devastating. And I think I'm going to say something that David Goldfarb is probably planning on saying, which is the other kind of elephant in the room that hangs over our head, is that if we need to reinvest at Stony Brook and expand the plant there because of our I&I and other communities' I&Is, that is going to be a really big financial bullet to bite. So whatever we and the other communities can do to ensure that the current capacity at the plant is not exceeded is really money in the bank for us, because that will be multi hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'll defer to David on that, but really a major investment that all of the partners in Stony Brook would have to make. And this would be, there's a formula. If you exceed the capacity so many times by whatever, it's not like it would be up to us to decide. The state would say you have to do this, and then that would be a really big financial bullet. So whatever we are paying now to deal with the I&I, to reduce the flow, is really an investment not only in our infrastructure, but in our financial future. And so that's my comment. David, please chime in if I missed anything or misstated anything. But again, thank you, David, to you and to Andrew and everyone else who's been working on this for so long. And I'm thrilled that the council is so supportive.
Well, thank you, Eve. And you did make a point that I would have made otherwise. And there are savings both from what Andrew mentioned and from what Eve mentioned. I don't know whether the expansion of the plant is going to be hundreds of millions of dollars, but it's definitely not going to be cheap. And to the extent that we can defer it or avoid it entirely, that is money in our pocket. And then, of course, literally every gallon of extraneous flow that we eliminate is saving us money, every single one. It's important that we identify the biggest sources of extraneous flow and eliminate them. I think Andrew is completely on board and is capable of implementing a program that is going to remove a large amount of I&I. It's been done in the past. We kind of lost our way when Bob Huff left, but we're back. We're back and ready to move forward.
Thanks, Dave. Do we have other council questions? Okay, great. David, Andrew, thank you both very much. All right. Okay, moving on, we have correspondence from the Princeton Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee.
Uh,
I have a copy of it.
Yeah, I'm not prepared. Sorry, Mark. So if you could.
Yep, sure.
Yeah.
All right, dated May 23rd, dear Princeton Mayor and Council, the Princeton Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee understands that Linden Lane between Franklin Avenue and Geo Avenue has serious flooding problems during rainfall. These flooding problems can impact pedestrian safety, especially when the intersection of Franklin and Linden Lane floods and/or freezes. Linden Lane does not have a curb, so water is not able to be channeled correctly and tends to pool up on the sides of the roads, which can cause heaving with the freeze-thaw cycle. Also, water pools at the intersection of Franklin Avenue and Linden Lane, possibly due to grading issues. I'd say most likely due to grading issues, since I've seen that condition many times. Please prioritize addressing these flooding issues, because this stretch of Linden, and especially the intersection of Franklin Avenue and Linden Lane, receive lots of foot traffic due to their proximity to Princeton High School and Princeton Middle School. Also, both Franklin Avenue and Linden Lane are bike boulevards that are heavily used by students on their way to and from school. Sincerely, Princeton Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee. So I think so noted, and we can ask engineering to take a look at that, because when that especially that intersection of Franklin and Linden, that pools quite a bit there. And if you're on a bike, you really, to go around that, you have to swerve into traffic. So you have to go out pretty far to miss that puddle, and it's very large. It's not something that you really want to drive through on a bicycle. David, I'm sorry, did you want to jump in?
No, I mean, thank you for being prepared to read that. And I will just comment that, there's a group of neighbors who have been advocating with different groups. I think they've been to the Infrastructure and Operations Committee as well, asking for help, and to the Flood and Stormwater Committee. So, I appreciate the Ped and Bike Advisory Committee taking on the task of supporting the residents in this regard, without being too prescriptive about what the right solution is, because I think engineering is aware of it, and but they have the expertise to figure out how to fix it, rather than the residents or the PBAC.
Yep. Okay. So noted. And just for the record, I'm going to thank Dolores for having handed me that letter in time for me to read it when you didn't have it. So Dolores made me look good. I wish I could take full credit for that, but I can't. So having said that, moving on, we have ordinance public hearings. The first one is ordinance 2022-13, an ordinance of the Municipality of Princeton amending Article 6 sewer connection fees of Chapter B34 sanitary sewer system of the municipal code. So, yes, Mia.
I'm making a motion to introduce it.
Thank you very much. Leticia has the second. Okay. And is this?
Yeah, just as clarification, there were some proposed revisions. I just want to see if what we're referring to here is the ordinance that was originally introduced and slated for the public hearing, or if Councilwoman Sachs's motion related to the revised version that contains changes.
Well,
I'm moving the revised version
Okay, that's fine.
but I think we're just introducing it tonight so that we would have the hearing on the 27th, right? Or are we?
no, this is the public hearing.
But this is, so this is the public hearing on the original ordinance, but if the council wants to proceed with the proposed amendments, it can do that, but then the ordinance as amended will have to be advertised and a public hearing held on that. So if what the council wants to do is proceed with the amendments, there isn't a lot of, hope that's not me.
Michelle, unmute because you have two, yeah.
Okay, sorry. I mean, if what the council intends to proceed with is the amended version, then there's little point in holding a public hearing on the original one. So that was why I was asking in terms of which version.
Right. So
So
Trish,
is there-
good, David.
I'm just going to ask if there's a specific action related to the first version that we should take prior to
No, because it
moving the state?
remains, no, it's still the same ordinance and it'll retain the same number on the ordinance, but basically what someone would be doing is, moving the amended version and then setting down a public hearing on the amended version.
Great.
Okay, so do we vote this down? Do we just not vote on it? Do we withdraw the motion or what's the?
No, I think as long as it's just clear that the motion here is basically to introduce the amendments to 2022-13. And then if the council passes that motion, then it's that version that will then be advertised and set down for public hearing, but it does remain, it's still the same ordinance, just with changes made to it.
Okay, all right. So the proper way to do this is to ask Mia to
Move the amendments.
amend her motion to say she's moving the amended ordinance. We would vote on that and then that would be advertised and a public hearing would be set.
Correct.
And we're not voting on the ordinance that was in the agenda for tonight.
No, you're
Correct.
voting on the amendments that have been made to
Yep.
it.
No, I'm just trying to spell it out because I want to make sure
Yep.
everybody in the audience follows exactly what we're doing.
And it's going to be procedurally same thing with the next two ordinances that also have proposed amendments to them.
Okay.
But yes, it's a little confusing.
All right. Well, good. At least we're going to know what we're doing for the next two. So Mia, is that okay with you to amend your motion to?
I amend my motion to move the amendments to introduce the amended version. I think I got all of that.
All right. Thank you. David, let me just get a second. David Goldfarb, and then I'll get back to you. Leticia, are you okay keeping your second? Okay. David Goldfarb, you had a question?
Yeah, I just want to mention that we discussed this at the sewer committee and we're generally on board with the amendment. We had some concerns about the ordinances that had originally been introduced. But I do not intend to attend the public hearing for the revised reintroduced ordinance. I'm just letting you know that we're on board.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're moving the amended ordinance to introduce it. And do we need I guess it's still a roll call. Okay, Dolores, can we do a roll call on that, please?
Yes. Ms. Perone Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs,
Yes.
Mr. Newland.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ordinance 2022-14, an ordinance by the Municipality of Princeton regarding accessory structures and accessory dwelling units, modifying the definitions of attic and floor area, and amending the code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974, and the code of the Township of Princeton, New Jersey, 1968. So this also has changes, so someone would hopefully move the amended version and we'll do the exact same thing. David?
Yes, I'd like to move the amended version.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Leighton. All right, moved and seconded that will, for the amended version, so we're introducing that at this point. Okay, can we have a roll call again, please?
Ms. Perone Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs,
Yes.
Mr. Newland.
Yes.
Okay,
And the public hearing is going to be June 27th.
June 27th?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. All right, ordinance 2022-15, an ordinance by the Municipality of Princeton rezoning two parcels on the Hun School campus, block 9303, lot 1 on Wynant Road, and block 8203, lot 11 on Hun Road, from the R2 resident district to the E4 education district, and amending the Princeton Township zone map accordingly. So I'm sorry, we have changes on this one also?
Very much less. Yeah, they came about just this afternoon. I think they were posted to the meeting portal around 5 o'clock, thanks to our clerk. And I did send them out to all of the council members as well.
Okay, and they're significant enough that we have to reintroduce.
Well, what's interesting is that the change itself in terms of the overall substance of the ordinance isn't a big one. But I was having some communications with our planner, Justin Lesko, and the implications of the change itself there may be multiple impacts. And so based on some of the information that he was sharing with me, initially my thought was, well, maybe it isn't sufficiently substantial to require, basic reintroduction. But after speaking with him, I think this would require, introducing the amendments and holding a public hearing. But I'd like to let him speak to that it's not my job. It's not my purview to call on him, but I just think it would be important information for the council to have.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Justin, just one second. So that, which, we're gonna let Justin speak, but I just want to make clear what we're doing, because there's people obviously that are here this evening that
Absolutely.
we're hoping to speak on this. But if what we're doing is, if the changes are significant enough, then we're introducing it. There's really not going to be discussion on it until it comes back for its public hearing. So I just want to.
And I just want to add that I think this is really unfortunate, because as late as I think 5:30, we were under the assumption that this was going to be, the hearing would be tonight, and everyone is in attendance, on various sides to speak tonight. I don't know what happened in the last hour, but it seems like a really unfortunate process that one conversation could completely tank what was expected by everyone tonight, which was for the hearing to happen.
No, so I agree. So I think it would be great for us to understand what the change is, and then to make sure that we can't pass this as is, and then consider an amendment to the ordinance later on. So anyway,
thank you, Mayor. So the change itself has to do with how the setbacks are measured in the E4 education zone. And currently under the code, it provides that all of the setbacks are measured from the zone boundary.
Mm-hmm.
The proposed amendment would be to change that the setbacks are measured either from the zone boundary or from the edge of the right-of-way if the lot abuts a public road. So taken in a vacuum, I think I would have felt comfortable saying, no, go ahead and proceed without, holding a further public hearing, because to me, it seems like a very simple modification. However, I think this is where I would like to turn to Justin in terms of what this could affect, because I think that is an important, it's important to understand that in terms of whether or not you can proceed tonight without reintroducing it.
Okay, so Justin, we're going to let you take a shot at that, but I think you need to answer a different question first, which is the proposed change that came in very late. Is there any reason why we have to do that tonight, as opposed to taking this ordinance as it was already introduced and voting on that tonight? And this change that came about very recently, could that not be handled at a future meeting without impacting what we're doing tonight?
I would just like to chime in on that, Mark, that numbers of members of the public who I've had conversations with about this zone change are sort of invested in this change in the definition of the setback. So we could go ahead and have the public hearing, but I think that it would be contrary. And it was introduced to council late, but it was actually discussed at the planning board meeting last week when this was reviewed. So members of the public who were at that planning board were expecting this change to be made. And I think that it would be more confusing than simplifying if we tried to strip it out past what was introduced 2 weeks ago and then come back later with a separate ordinance. It's not to say it can't be done, but that's the drawback from my standpoint.
Okay, let me just get Justin to answer the question. And I'm not saying that to disregard what you just said, David, but I'm just asking the planner to answer the question, or the two questions, and then we'll jump back to the council people. So Justin, why don't you jump in and try to address this?
Sure. So this change would affect both the parcels that you have before you today, the adjacent to the Hunt School property, and then potentially what they could put on it. But interestingly, the E4 zone is also for Stewart Country Day School and Princeton Day School. Those don't have these internal roads right now, or maybe ever. So it wouldn't really affect them, but it is their zoning and the underlying zoning. So I don't know, just from a procedural standpoint, if it's something that, the Hunt School needs advanced warning of, as well as those other two schools, to, kind of get a better sense of what the actual zoning will become and who needs to be here. Additionally, it would make several of the existing Hunt School zonings non-conforming to the zoning. That would just require variances down the line if they so chose to build, in line with where those buildings already are. Which again, that's probably not a deal breaker, but without the Hunt School knowing, I can't handicap what their opinion would be on that.
Okay. Mia, do you want to?
Yeah, I respectfully disagree with Councilman Cohen's interpretation. That was his impression of what happened at the planning board. But that was not unified. That was not a unified memory of the staff. And it wasn't even clear to the planner who just spoke that this was a recommendation. It was my understanding of what I heard from staff and from our planner was that the recommendation from the planning board was not that this be implemented, but that the council look into, explore what this setback, the implications of changing this setback. And that is the change that I saw in the ordinance, which was, it was the final whereas, which it says, whereas mayor and council will going forward explore the implications of changing this. And obviously to just change it for Hun would be, is not possible. There are implications for other properties, and the benefit or the way that I think is possible is because Hun has agreed to postpone building on the site for 5 years, which gives the municipality time to explore whatever zoning changes it wants to make. But it was not the most germane aspect of this situation. It was something that Councilman Cohen in particular was focused on. But there is, I think, there was an agreement that was proposed by the neighbors and that the school has agreed to. And I'm, just on a related note, want to commend the neighbors and the school for reaching an agreement and proposing that to the town. It's so refreshing to see that sort of agreement. And I know that both the school and the neighbors were excited about coming tonight and having the council bless their agreement. And I hate to lose that momentum. The town has dragged this out for 5 years, which I think is unprecedented for something of this nature. And we do have a moment in which there's a consensus between people who were on opposite sides for a long time. And I really hate to lose that momentum over one item, which is a setback, which we can address and look into over the next 5 years.
Thank you. David?
So I will respectfully disagree with my colleague, Ms. Sachs, that there was any lack of clarity about what the resolution was that was passed at the planning board last week. I made the resolution. It's very easy to go back to the recording and hear what was moved. It was approved unanimously by the planning board, and staff had some uncertainty about their recollection until I reminded them of some certain details of the conversation, at which point they agreed that this was, in fact, what was voted on at the planning board, was to make this change. Now, I want to say a quick thing about what's a complication for me. For the most part, the buildings on all three of these campuses are well in compliance or very close to compliance with this 75-foot setback. Where there's non-compliance is with parking. And the setback definition does apply to parking as well, which I think is the complicating factor that makes this deserve to be reintroduced, because it's a substantial change rather than an insubstantial change. But that's really the question, is should we have a different setback for parking than what we do for buildings in these zones? And that does deserve some additional deliberation. But it's super important that the buildings at least be set back. And so, we could, I don't see a way to proceed without reintroducing this that would be satisfactory to the parties that I've been talking about and to the planning board.
Okay, Leighton.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to read something that came to my mind today. And this has been going on for over 2 years. And I think it really is time that if we are able to bring this to some level of finality. What makes the Hunt School neighborhood so special and so bucolic is the relationship and close proximity between the school and the homes. The school and the neighborhood are dependent on each other for the feeling of ambiance, streetscape, and the feeling of community. What a novel occurrence it has been to see a Princeton institution and a neighborhood who are and have been dependent on each other come together to address mutual interests in the area of redevelopment. The school understandably must be able to accommodate its enrollment and meet the demands of changes to its educational environment and curriculum, while simultaneously respecting the quality of life and peaceful enjoyment of the neighborhood, and particularly the institution's ever so close abutting neighbors. I want to acknowledge both Hunt School, John Broham, and the Eggerstone neighborhood, and I think we have heard from just about everyone in the neighborhood who saw the benefit of we versus me. An attitude we could use a lot more of here in Princeton. I have every confidence that what could have been a very contentious situation has not become so because the adults in the room acted like the adults in the room, which in this case has made everyone winners. I encourage continued neighborhood dialogue as anticipated changes are planned for and developed. But I quite frankly see no reason why we can't look at this tonight and whatever's going to happen within the next 5 years, deal with it on a real-time basis. Thank you.
Thanks, Leighton. Eve.
I have to stop following Leighton. In much less eloquent terms, I want to, echo what Leighton said, having, met with the head of the school, met with the neighbors, really accolades and commendations to them for working hard to come to a mutually satisfactory solution. I did watch the planning board meeting, but I don't want to really weigh in on what I thought happened. However, it does seem to me, unless our attorney and planner tell us otherwise, that since construction, anything Hun or PDS or Stewart might do is not going to happen in the next few weeks to couple of months, I'm not sure I understand why we can't move forward with the idea that we're going to fully explore the details of, the 75-foot setback and make sure to differentiate as need be between parking and buildings and get that done. We're committed to doing it, but I'm not sure I understand why we can't move forward tonight. Again, the key players are in the room. Thank you. I hate to ask people to come back in 2 weeks. So, I agree. If there's any way to move forward, and Trishka, can you just, I'm sorry, weigh in again? Like, is this an option? Can we have a vote about whether to move forward? And then if we want to move forward, we move forward, or?
Well, right now, the presumption is a public hearing on the ordinance as it was introduced.
Right.
And that's what's listed for public hearing. What, if anyone wanted to amend the ordinance, just as we did with the previous two, somebody would have to move the amendments and the council would vote. And then that would be set down for a new public hearing. But if approved, if no one moves the amendments, you have a public hearing on the original. If there's a motion and no second, the motion fails, you have a public hearing on the original version. If someone moves it, seconds it, and the motion fails because it doesn't get the right number of votes, you have a public hearing on the original ordinance.
Are you going to have to go home and do homework on this, or
I would just say, yes, let's please not have the kind of vote where I then have to go do research in 2 days to figure out the outcome.
Sorry, that
I don't want to do that again.
So, yeah, I mean, I'd like to move forward, but.
Okay, let me get, David, do you mind if I go to Leticia, because she hasn't spoken on this yet, and you have a couple times, so let me just get to Leticia, then I'm going to come back to you.
Okay.
First, I do find it difficult to follow Leighton, so I'll just say ditto on that, on what he said. But I don't know if it's significant or not. I wanted to remind my colleagues that there are two of us that are going to be absent on the 27th. So if we were to continue this, that would be, I know the second ordinance, I don't know, I didn't hear about the first one, whether we're looking at June 27th. So that would be 3 ordinances where 2 of us will be absent. And I just wanted to point that out.
Actually, about 9 ordinances for public hearing at my count
Oh,
on the
wow.
27th currently.
Oh, my good. So,
Because we have about 6 that we're introducing.
yes. So let me just say that was not intentional on my part.
Okay, so I'd really like us to kind of get to the point where we let somebody make a motion and somebody's gonna either move the amended version or the original, or move the public hearing forward, one or the other, but I know both David and Mia have their hands up, so I'll ask both of you to speak, but can we just keep it as brief as possible so we can do what we need to do here one way or the other? David.
Sure. So I just want to say, I mean, the argument that Eve is making that because nothing's going to happen for 5 years, we have plenty of time to take care of the details of this going forward. And why not vote on something that's half-baked tonight? I would say because nothing's going to happen for 5 years, there's no rush to go forward with this ordinance tonight. I would say the reason that it has taken council the 5 years to get this done, or at least the 2 years since the last time this came up, was that we brought something that was not fully considered last year. And so we ended up not passing it at that time because it needed more work. And I would hate to do the same thing tonight, whether we pass it or not, whether, to go ahead with something that's not resolved because we're in a hurry. That's not the way to do council business.
Thank you, David. Mia.
I think David is the only person who would characterize the original as half-baked, and I think that's actually offensive to all the work that has been put into it. I just want to say, though, I don't think that that David and I necessarily disagree. I think that what the planning board recommended was that the council consider this. I don't think that they recommended a specific solution. And as Justin said, because we didn't really get into the implications of making this sort of a zone change, I'm sorry about this. Sorry, it's just family noises. I'm actually looking forward to going back in person. So, anyway, I think, what the sentiment of the planning board, I just want to mention that the planning board has now twice unanimously voted this consistent with the master plan. What they asked was for us to consider the implications of this setback. You disagree, David, but if you were to go.
I made the motion.
Okay, guys, I don't think we need to debate that any further.
All right, but I thought that what Trishka put in, I have a question because I I'm not sure exactly which is even the amended version, but I thought that David, you agreed earlier in the day, and I agreed with the version which says, whereas the mayor and council will explore making changes to that, we'll explore making zone changes. And I don't know why we can't just go ahead and do that. I'm unclear as to why now we're.
Can we, you know what, we're going back and forth on stuff we've already said. So I would like to ask a member of council to make a motion on either the existing ordinance, and we have the public hearing, or someone make a motion on the amended version, at which point it gets reintroduced. Sorry.
Can I just say that the attorney for the Hun School is here, and may want to shed some, I think we should let him weigh in.
We need to have a motion before, no, because if we're just simply introducing, then there's no discussion. But if we're going to have a public hearing, then there's discussion.
So which is the existing version, the one that has the one that was agreed on this afternoon, or the one?
No, the one,
The current version is what was introduced and then set down for a public hearing for tonight. The revised one I sent out with the modifications highlighted. I didn't use track changes because then we're going to couldn't find the underlines. But I highlighted the provisions that were modified, and that version is the one that contains the additional section with the changes to how you measure the setbacks. The original version strictly deals with the zone boundary change and says nothing at all about setbacks.
correct. So it's what was in the agenda package when it was published on Friday.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to break it again, Mark, but I want to make sure that people understand that if we pass what was introduced 2 weeks ago, that the Hun School can build on the Mason House lot right up against the sidewalk. There is no setback from Wyatt Street in the current zoning ordinance. And so if we make the zone change, there is absolutely no restriction on how close to the road they can build. And I think they may represent to us, we don't have any plans to build that close to the road, we won't do it. But I think this is a problem in our ordinance that should be fixed at the same time that we do the rezoning.
Right. So
And I'm fine with taking our time to figure out the right way to do it. I don't see what the hurry is.
Well, I would say this, there's a number of people that expect us to have this discussion on this ordinance tonight and want to weigh in on it. So in fairness to them, I think it makes sense to move ahead with the public hearing on the ordinance as it was originally published in the agenda on Friday. We can easily instruct staff and the attorney to come back at the next meeting and introduce the changes dealing with the setback. So we can have the change for the setback in place within a month or so, whatever, 6 weeks, whatever it is, depending on the meeting schedule. So I'm not saying that we need to wait, we should wait some undefined length of time to address it. But I just think in fairness to the public that expected us to have a discussion on this tonight, we should have that discussion.
And then they all have to come back in 2 weeks to have the discussion about the other ordinance as well.
I don't know that most people are going to be, I'm going to say the majority of people are probably here to hear what the original ordinance was and most people aren't going to be as concerned about the setback. Some subset will be, and then they can come back. But anyway, let me jump to Michelle, who's had her hand up patiently, and then hopefully we get somebody to make a motion here.
Okay, so I think my question's answered, but I just ask it again. I mean, there's no way that we can move forward on this and then have either an amendment to the ordinance later that changes the setback, or an amendment. It sounds like the setback change would have to be for all the, I think it's E4 zones throughout the town. So why couldn't we then do something just in general for all the E4 zones? And I'll direct this to Justin and to Trishka, that we would want to change the setback so it's fair and equal to all of the different zones. Justin,
the proposed amendment applies to all of the properties.
To all of them, right? So I mean, that's what we're talking about. We can we can move forward with the public hearing tonight, and then we can come back and do the setback thing at a future meeting.
Well, if that's the case, then I would make a motion to move forward on the hearing tonight.
Okay, so you're going to move the existing ordinance as published in the agenda on Friday?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second on that? Eve has the second. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. So now we get into comment. So I would hope, with all due respect for the council people, that we don't have the same discussion we just had again. But if there's something different that you want to say, let's do that, because then I'd love to get to the public. David.
I would actually like to have Trishka talk with us a little bit about the general principle of what we can consider and what we cannot consider when we're doing an ordinance like this. And it relates to this issue, but it also relates to some of the representations that we've heard from the Hun School about what they will do. For instance, not building for 5 years, or for instance, limiting the square footage that they would put on the Mason lot, or representing that they're going to put a conservation easement on the mall. And I think it's a general principle that the members of council need to hear from Trishka about how those considerations of what is being promised should impact our deliberations.
Yeah, I'd be happy to address that. And I think Justin was going to touch on that too. I believe that he had prepared a presentation, but basically the answer is what is proper consideration is planning principles. And I think I can boil them down really, really simply. The two properties in question, does it make more sense to have them in the E4 zone or in a residential zone? In terms of their characteristics, are they integral to the campus and really part of the Hun School and, you know, belong in the E4 zone? Or are they really more residential in nature and really feel like they're part of the neighborhood and therefore should remain in the residential zone? It really is a planning calculus in terms of where do you want to draw that boundary line? I certainly understand and appreciate the Hun School and the neighbors working together, and I think that's excellent. But that's not a factor in the council's decision. And the promises that the Hun School has been making to the neighbors really shouldn't be a factor in what the council decides to do. It really is, this is a planning exercise and you've got to draw your zone boundary somewhere. Where does it make sense to draw this one? And I think that really comes back to, do these properties, do they partake more of the character of the school and belong in the E4 zone, or are they really more residential in nature and belong in the residential zone? Obviously, I can't answer that question. Your planner can. He can weigh in from a planning perspective. But in terms of, you know, legally what you're looking at, that's really, I mean, as closely as I can boil it down.
Thank you. Justin, did you want to jump in with something short and sweet?
Sure, yeah. I have a PowerPoint, but I'll just jump straight to one slide to kind of answer that a different way. So this is what you're voting on, basically. Here's the existing zoning that these two parcels are in, R2, and here's you know, your lot requirements, your setback requirements, height, etc. Here's the proposed one, and the requirements there too for the E4 zoning. Now, if the property owner came in tomorrow, or if this was approved and the property owner came in a month with something that complied or you know, fell within these E4 regulations, we as staff and the planning board would have to compare against the E4 regulations. And, you know, like I said, it could be a month, it could be a year. It doesn't necessarily have to be that 5-year, you know, kind of commitment or anything else. So really, this is what you're, you know, you're kind of deciding on tonight. Do these two properties, this long mall and this property here that is where the Mason House are, do those belong in the E4 with these restrictions, or do they belong in the R2, the residential, as they are now?
Okay, thank you, Justin. Justin, off the top of your head, do you know the size of the lot that the Mason House is on?
I do, actually. It's 1.984 acres. I've been looking at this a lot.
Okay, and the minimum lot size in the R2 is 1.5?
It's 1.5. The caveat to that is most of the lots there are either 2 or 3 times smaller than that.
Okay. The reason I ask is just to find out if that lot could be subdivided. So it sounds like it could not be.
It could be with a variance, and then
with the variance. Yeah.
you could argue it's, similar to what's there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any
For the
other new?
applicant.
Yep. Sorry.
No, I was just saying the applicant could argue that.
Okay. Any other new council comments or questions? If not, I'd love to jump to the public. Okay. Adam, I think we have the Hunt School attorney was the first person with his hand up.
Actually, do we need a motion to adopt the ordinance? I
We
know
do.
it was introduced last year, but we haven't.
No, Michelle made the.
I made it.
Michelle,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It
Michelle
was to
made
move
the-
forward with the ordinance as introduced, but you can't adopt it
Right.
until you've held your public hearing.
correct.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So anyway, can we bring?
Did we vote on, or you don't vote on the motion?
No, we can't vote till after we have all the discussion.
Okay.
All we did is we voted. I'm sorry. Someone made a motion to introduce the existing ordinance that was in the agenda on Friday, and that was seconded. So
Okay.
now we're having all the discussion.
Got it.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Can we bring Rich Goldman in, please?
Yes, Mayor, bringing him over now.
Thank you. Rich,
Can you see me?
I can't see you, but I can hear you.
So why can't you see me? Let's see.
You were not promoted to a panelist. You were just allowed to
I
speak.
see. Okay,
There's a different way to be able to see you.
that's fine. You don't need to see me anyway. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak. As you know, I'm Rich Goldman. I represent the Hunt School. I implore you, as earnestly as I can in my 40 years of practicing law, to move forward with this ordinance. And I wanted to give you a couple of reasons. There's a significant difference between the ordinance that we've requested, which is an amendment to the zoning map. It does not change the substance of the E4 zoning at all. It changes the map. That's quite different than an ordinance that changes the substance of the E4. And why is that significant? When you change the substance of the E4, you affect all of the schools that are within the E4 zone. And I think Justin mentioned a few. I think there may even be some others. Okay, so what I see happening here is the potential of getting bogged down in a township-wide evaluation of an ordinance that needs some attention. On the other hand, amending the map to bring the Hunt School into the E4, these two lots, allows the Hunt School to begin its process of planning, fundraising, and preparing for changes within the campus. I would also like to point out to you that, yes, I agree that the ordinance itself cannot impose the kinds of restrictions that we've agreed to with our neighbors. We have prepared a declaration of covenants and restrictions to be recorded. It's already prepared. It's ready to go. If this ordinance is adopted, we will file with the clerk's office, the Mercer County clerk, this declaration. And in that declaration, among other things, it says no construction on the Mason House lot for 5 years. We've agreed to limit the size of any buildings on the Mason House lot to 10,000 square feet of FAR and a footprint no larger than 3,333 square feet, which is what was suggested by our neighbors. We've had an incredible time now. Now it's literally 2 years in the last round, but it's almost 4 years that we've been at this, where the school has been stymied and can't move ahead with its planning. Please move forward with the ordinances as drafted, and then begin a thoughtful process as to what amendments to the substance of the ordinance are required. That's what I'm begging you after all these years now to try to let us move this forward. When the time comes, John Brome is here to speak, and I know we have many others, but I really urge you to move this forward.
Thank you, Rich. All right, Adam, let's bring in the next person.
Okay, next we have Felicia.
again, for everybody, as you come in, if you say your name and your address and just watch the timer for your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's Felicia Spitz, 5 Hazlitt Avenue. I wanted to just answer David's question about why time is of the essence. We have a temporary variance that has allowed us to use the Mason House for offices. So we could retrofit the interior with a temporary infirmary. We really can't wait because we need to build that infirmary over the summer, which is very short in a school's life, in their schedule. And the only way to build that infirmary is to move the offices into the Mason House, and that necessitates the zoning change. So that, I hope, explains the urgency portion of this, in addition to what Rich said about our strategic planning and all those other things. This infirmary is really critical. We would like to start the school year with it, and we need to get the offices out in order to do that. I would also like to say that the agreement that the school has made with the neighbors in no way prevents or precludes any additional zoning work being done by you all. And as you will probably hear repeatedly, we do have a 5-year moratorium on that lot. So you all have plenty of time, to Leticia's point, if people are going to be absent next week, you can do it whenever, but we really need this zoning change now so we can do the infirmary and keep the offices in the Mason House. Please, please vote yes for this. And we will happily come back, and whatever's decided about the zoning, will gladly build within that, whatever those restrictions turn out to be. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Adam, please bring in the next person.
All right, next we have Cam.
Thank you.
Thanks. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good, thank you. My name's Cam Stout. I never know which name's going to appear in a Zoom because I poured water on my laptop 2 weeks ago and I've been borrowing several. So I'm glad Cam came up. Thanks for entertaining my thoughts. They'll be brief. I am a former step parent of a kid who just graduated from Hun. My wife is a history teacher there, and I have done a wee bit of substitute teaching, despite the fact that I'm a lawyer and a mediator. 2 things. First, I think time is of the essence, and this is my mediator hat speaking to you, simply because there's a compromise. And I am extremely thankful and very, very impressed, frankly, by the residents, the group of neighborhood residents, and thank you all if you're on the phone. And I am not in any way suggesting that anyone will back away from anything, but I've mediated for 10 years and who knows. So it would be good if we could nail this down and get and carve it into stone. I thought the other points were very good. And if there's any question about, and I'm not suggesting for a minute that anyone is questioning the Hun School's integrity, et cetera, there's no better school out there. And I've had contact with a lot of them in my own work. And it's a school of incredible respect and integrity. And they are absolutely to be trusted. Again, I'm not suggesting anyone feels otherwise. So I will put please in italics and bold, and hope that you can pass it tonight. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Adam, next person.
Okay, next we have Stephanie.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to hear my thoughts. My name is Stephanie Connell. I am the CFO at the Hun School, but long before that, I was and remain a proud resident of Princeton. I live at 48 Kyler Road. When my husband and I moved to Princeton 20 years ago, it was because the community highly valued its educational institutions. And the reason educational institutions thrive in Princeton is because the residents understand the value that they bring. This delicate balance is sustained because both sides are reasonable and both sides are willing to compromise and respect each other, at least in our neighborhood. I believe strongly that the proposed rezoning of this parcel that has always been part of these two parcels, I should say, that have always been part of Hun's campus, represent this compromise. Hun does understand the importance of the community and the neighborhood in which it resides. And this compromise that was offered shows how much they understand the importance of having a strong institution in the neighborhood. The planning board has voted that this change is consistent with the master plan multiple times, largely because the E4 zone provides ample restrictions, and it's actually a little more restrictive than the current R2 zone that's currently there. And Hun is even, as part of this compromise, willing to reduce the scope of any project based in order to respect the concerns of our neighbors. This plan will also preserve much needed green space to the benefit of all, and it shows support for the community and helps ensure the future viability of the school at the same time. I believe the community recognizes that a thriving institution benefits everyone, and therefore will offer their support in return by please approving this modest rezoning request. Thank you very much for all of your hard work on this, for your time, and for your consideration.
Thank you. All right, Adam, who's next?
All right, next we have Michael.
Michael?
Yes, thank you. I live on Hun Road. I was involved in writing the compromise proposal with the school. We had a very substantive and I think effective meeting with the head of the school, Mr. John Brome. I would simply like to say that the full account of what was agreed to was not represented accurately by Mr. Goldman. He has that material in writing. I know the council has seen that proposal. I would hope that we have a full hearing of what it is that the neighbors have asked. And the main element that we've asked for in exchange for not objecting, and in fact, increasing the size of a building that might be built, was that it be built as close as possible, as zoning allows, which is the 75-foot setback, to the corner of Wynant and Edgerstone. That is, in a fashion that will leave as much of the green space of the Hun lot open and treed and as an amenity for the school and for the neighborhood. That was the essential element in our discussions with Mr. Brome, and I hope that will be respected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Adam, next.
All right, next we have John.
Okay.
Is that me?
That's you, John.
Yes, hi, John Brome speaking, head of school at Hun. Thanks so much for your time and attention on this matter. Just to tell you briefly, we've been in this neighborhood for 95 years. We've never asked to increase the size of our campus with rezoning ever in the past. And we love the neighborhood. We love our neighbors probably now more than ever because of the mutual work we put into this situation. But we are out of our growing space. We're out of FAR, and as an institution, we'll be stifled unless we can get this ordinance passed. As you know, it's in two parts for the Mason House, and we need that lot both for the office space that will allow us to build the infirmary within Russell Hall and also for future development. And as has been mentioned, we have committed to our neighbors that we would not do anything additional with that property for at least 5 years. And then we seek to rezone the mall and to get the FAR from that for the interior of our campus, but also to put it into a deed restriction and permanently protect it. But Michael asked if we could possibly read through the compromise agreement that our neighbors have presented to us, which I think they did an amazing job on. I'm really proud of the way that our neighbors came together and worked with us. We all listened. We all came to some kind of a solution here. And would it be possible for me to read what they put forward to us?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. We propose a compromise regarding the Hun Schools application for the rezoning of 2 parcels of land owned by them, the mall lot and the Mason House lot, that are contiguous with private neighborhood residences. After having discussed the question of the school's application with some members of the Princeton Council, we members of the Edgestone neighborhood offer the following amendments to the school's plan in a spirit of goodwill and conciliation. In exchange for the 2 modest adjustments sketched below to the school's proposed plan, we believe that a consensus about the neighborhood's varied uses could be achieved, that the school will be able to pursue its goals for expansion of its facilities on its campus, and that a significant tract of the area's green space, one vital to the appeal of both the school and of neighborhood life, could be maintained. The 2 adjustments to the current rezoning application that we propose are: 1, that the Hun School replace Mason House with its projected new building on as much of the house's current footprint as possible, and that the new structure be built as close to the corner of Edgestone and Wynant Roads as zoning regulations allow. In exchange for the compromise here proposed, we, the school's Edgestone neighbors, will not oppose a slightly larger structure on the Mason House lot than the Hun School has proposed, thus raising the maximum square footage of a potential building from 9,000 to 10,000 square feet on a footprint not to exceed 3,333 square feet, as this, we hope, in good faith, will facilitate their future plans. 2, that the Hun School agree to a deed restriction or some similar legal instrument that will guarantee that nothing further will be built on the Mason House lot, and that the remainder of the lot be preserved as an open green space. The positive effects of these minor amendments to the Hun School's proposals are 4-fold. They would allow the school to pursue its real needs for expansion in the future by allowing it to benefit from an increase of more than 25,500 square feet of potential building space, FAR, that would be the consequence of the rezoning proposal. They would preserve the open, treed green space at the heart of the Edgestone neighborhood and at the entry to the school's property. That is a major benefit to all concerned. The proposal will complement the preservation of the mall lot that the school has already proposed. They would respect the spirit and language of the Princeton Master Plan by preserving a crucial buffer zone between those areas zoned for residential and educational use. Lastly, these amendments would allow the school and the neighborhood to move forward in a collaborative and constructive fashion toward their common goals. Respectfully, as residents of the Edgestone neighborhood, and undersigned are 22 different names of, including, I think, all those who had formerly objected to some of our plans. So to me, this is exactly the model that we need and want among neighbors. And I really feel like we've reached an important compromise here. And I'm so hoping that we can move forward with it and in that way meet the interests of all concerned.
John, thank you very much for sharing all of that.
It may also just say that Rich already has drafted deed restrictions and that all of those requirements will be put into the document he mentioned. So
okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, Adam, let's bring in the next person.
Okay, next we have Eve.
Hi, I'm Eve Colson. I live at 291 Russell Road, and I'll be very brief. I'm just here to simply speak in support of the Hun School's request to change the zoning designation to E4 and on the 2 parcels of their campus that are currently in an R2 zone, which is what is being addressed tonight. And I know other things have been talked about, but I'll simply say I support that. And I am glad that there's been a compromise achieved. That's great. That's it.
Thank you, Eve. All right, Adam, who's next?
Okay, next we have Karim.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm Karam. I'm a current rising senior at Hun. I'm also the student body president, so I'm here to really represent the Hun student community, which I suppose is the motivation behind this proposal by the Hun School. At the current moment, Hun is, in 2 words, a bit built out, and these developments that Hun will be creating, I think the Hun students are definitely in full support of this. Princeton is distinguished in the entire country for the institutions, the scholastic institutions in the region, all the way from the university down to the first introductions of students into education. And this comes from useful developments like this. Hun is putting its rapidly developing visual arts and technology program at the forefront right now. And this rezoning will definitely allow Hun to have the space that it needs to keep up Princeton's scholastic reputation. And we'll do this in a way that works best for both the school and the neighborhood. I've been a Princeton resident my entire life. About or over 150 of HUN's current attendees are Princeton residents as well. So this is definitely, I haven't heard anyone who hasn't been in support of this proposal yet. And I hope that the council will vote in favor of what the public sentiment holds. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, Adam, who's next?
Okay, next we have Ugur.
Hi, can you unmute yourself, please? All right, Adam, let's, oh, there we go. Hello. All right, Adam, let's move to the next person, please.
Okay, bringing over Charlotte.
Thanks.
Hi, this is Charlotte Friedman, and I live at 102 Russell Road with Ed Fenwick. And I want to, contrary to all the other meetings before, I just want to, I do hope that you pass the ordinance. And I wanted to thank John Brome and the Hun School for the statement that he read, and to acknowledge the neighbors who signed on to the agreement. And I'm just going to read those 20 names. Christina Corsilia, Liz Cutler, Neil Desai, Arthur Eisenbach, Donald Elfson, Martine Ellefson, Ed Fenwick, Charlotte Friedman, Teresa Gonzalez Ruiz, Andrew Ive, Mark Johnston, Anka Kinsky, Uwe Kinsky, Michael Courtbosian, Tom Kreutz, Mark Little, Brown Little, Jean Mazzetti, Joe Mazzetti, Norman Moranis, Jay Pacala, Lauren Pector, Karen Prager, Stuart Prager, and James Stewart. So thank you very much, and thanks everyone for all their really hard work on this.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else from the public? If so, just put your hand up. Okay, Adam, I see one more hand came up.
All right, bringing over Brian.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
First of all, I have to say,
can you just introduce yourself?
What's that?
Could you say your name and address?
Brian, Hun School, class of 1975.
Okay.
I have to say to Leighton, your Yankees cap is spot on. You know, I've been listening to this this evening. I'm on the Board of Trustees at HUN. Spent 25 years on the alumni board at HUN. We're just trying to, you know, do a couple of things on the campus. We appreciate everything that council addresses, but we're a small community at the HUN School, and we were just trying to, you know, move a couple of residents over to the Mason House, and we certainly appreciate everything the council has done.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Adam, I think we have another hand that came up.
All right, let's try Uj again.
Okay. Hi, can you unmute yourself? All right. All right. We're gonna move on. All right. Are there any further council comments or questions? Eve?
I see our zoning officer has his hand up. Can I yield to him and then speak?
Of course.
I yield my time. I've always wanted to say that. I yield my time. The Honorable Derek Bridger.
There we go. Derek, jump in, please.
Good evening. I just wanted to clear up some misstatement I made at the last meeting regarding FAR. I had originally said, this is at a planning board meeting last week, that basement FAR would be included in the FA. It's exempt from FAR. Then I flip-flopped and said it wasn't exempt. If basement meets the definition of a basement, it is exempt from FAR. And the way that works is FAR is the sum of all stories measured from exterior wall to exterior wall. And under the definition of story, there's a sentence that says if a story meets the definition of a basement, it shall not be considered a story. So in that instance, it's not considered FAR because it's not considered a story. FAR is the sum of all the stories. So I just want to clarify the record, so there's no misstatements out there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Don't go too far in case there's a question on that. Mia?
Oh, can I go? Because I yielded my time.
Oh, you yielded, but you didn't give it up.
Maybe yield was not the right way. I let him go ahead of me. Gentlemen first, but I just want to say real quick, I won't be long, that I think several of the speakers have explained why this is a time sensitive issue. Therefore reinforcing my inclination to move ahead with this tonight. And as I had many months ago, once again, support this. So.
Thank you. Mia.
I just want to reiterate how impressed I am with the neighborhood. And I hope that more neighborhoods in town can follow your model, and we might have to dispatch you as ambassadors to some other neighborhoods. But in particular, I just want to thank Ed Fenwick and Charlotte Friedman and Norm Moranos and Arthur Eisenbach and Stuart and Karen Prager. I have sat through so many meetings in which you all have spoken and expressed your concerns. And it just makes me so happy to be here tonight and to hear you all on the same page and supporting a compromise. And it's just thrilling. And you all are exemplary for what I hope more residents in town can the type of behavior that more residents can exhibit. And thank you so much, really.
Okay, David?
Yeah, I wanted to particularly recognize Felicia's explanation for the time sensitivity of this, because that was helpful to me, and I am willing to support it. But I do hope that council will be serious about addressing this issue of the setback, because I don't think anybody in the neighborhood feels that a 0-foot setback to Wynant Road is a good idea, or even to Russell Road for the other buildings of the campus. It's and that's the way the ordinance is written now. So it's a broken ordinance. It needs to be fixed, and I'd like to fix it quickly.
Thank you, David. Any other comments before we take a roll call vote? Okay, once again, we're voting on the original version of the ordinance as it was published on Friday in the agenda package. Dolores, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Perrone-Lambros?
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
Mr. Newland?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody from the public that jumped in. Thank you, council. And thank you, Derek and Trishka and Justin and everyone for helping us get through that. All right. Moving on, ordinance introductions. These are easier. Okay, ordinance 2022-16, an ordinance by the Municipality of Princeton regulating traffic movement, loading zones and parking on Chamber Street, and amending the code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1964. Public hearing, June 27th, 2022. Is there a motion? Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second? Thank you, Leighton. David, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
And the question is, obviously traffic is already one way on Chamber Street. And I'm not sure if there's a backstory as to why this ordinance is important. I mean, did we make it one-way traffic temporarily and that only lasts a certain amount of time? Or maybe if Deanna could explain what the backstory is here, that'd be great.
Okay.
Sure. It's my understanding that the temporary one-way operation that was approved is only valid for 90 days. And so we need to follow up with a ordinance to be able to enforce the one-way operation.
So I would just like to reassure the public, in case they're worried, that we have no intention of keeping Chamber Street one-way permanently.
Good thing to point out, David. Thank you very much. Thank you for that explanation, Deanna.
You're welcome.
Okay, it's a roll call vote, sorry.
Ms. Peron Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs,
Yes.
Mr. Newland.
Yes, and thanks, David.
Okay, ordinance 2022-17, ordinance appropriating $960,000 from sewer connection fees for various improvements and equipment in and by Princeton in the county of Mercer, New Jersey. Public hearing, June 27th, 2022. Is there a motion? Eve, thank you. Sorry. And Mia's got the second. Roll call vote?
Ms. Peron Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs,
Yes.
Mr. Newland.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ordinance 2022-18, bond ordinance providing for various sewer improvements in and by Princeton in the county of Mercer, New Jersey, appropriating $5,100,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $5,100,000 bonds or notes of Princeton to finance the cost thereof. Public hearing, June 27th, 2022. Is there a motion on Eve? Boy, Eve, you're quick here. Eve on that. And Michelle's got the second. Thank you. Roll call on this?
Ms. Peron Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs,
Yes.
Mr. Newland.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2022-19, bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements in and by Princeton in the county of Mercer, New Jersey, appropriating $15,095,218 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $13,318,035 bonds or notes of Princeton to finance part of the cost thereof. Public hearing, June 27th, 2022. Is there a motion? Thank you, Michelle. Second by David. Another roll call vote?
Ms. Peron Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs,
Yes.
Mr. Newland.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2022-20, bond ordinance providing for acquisition of scooters for parking enforcement in and by Princeton in the county of Mercer, New Jersey, appropriating $152,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $152,000 of bonds or notes of Princeton to finance the cost thereof. Public hearing, June 27th, 2022. Is there a motion? Michelle, thank you. Leticia's got the second. Roll call vote. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dolores, 1 second. Eve, did you have a question or?
I would just, I spoke to Deanna about this earlier. Deanna, could you just explain what the word scooter means here? It's not like a razor. Okay.
Yes, correct. Thank you, Eve. The scooters that we are seeking budget for are the three-wheeled parking enforcement vehicles. They are fully enclosed. We are looking at purchasing 3 electric vehicles in our effort to roll over the fleet to be fully electric.
Okay, thank you. All right, Dolores, go ahead. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Ms. Peron Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan.
Yes.
Okay, the last introduction is ordinance 2022-21, bond ordinance providing for the replacement of the cooling tower and circulator motors at the library in and by Princeton in the county of Mercer, New Jersey, appropriating $388,000, therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $368,600 of bonds or notes of Princeton to finance part of the cost thereof. Public hearing, June 27th, 2022. Is there a motion? Eve, thank you. Leighton's got the second. Roll call vote.
Ms. Peron Lambros,
Yes.
Ms. Niedergang,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Fraga,
Yes.
Ms. Sachs,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan.
Yes.
Okay, now we're jumping to resolutions. 22-197, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton authorizing the purchase of one new 2022 Stephen Green 7-ton tandem axle trailer and accessories at a not to exceed cost of $14,070 using state contract A78905. Is there a motion? Thank you, Eve. David's got this. Thank you, Mia. Sorry. Yeah, you're right next to each other on my screen. What can I tell you? Mia's got the motion. David's got the second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Ayes have it. 22-198, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton authorizing the execution of a further extension. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think this one's mine. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the next one I'll take, that's 22-199, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton authorizing change order number. No, I'm sorry. Mayor and council authorizing the execution of a further extension of a use and occupancy agreement with the Princeton First Aid and Rescue Squad, also known as PFARS, for 14 Clearview Avenue. Is there, Michelle, is that a motion or do you have?
I'll make a motion and I want to make a comment as well.
Okay,
I'll
so
second. I'll second.
Michelle made the motion, seconded by David. Michelle?
And, you know, this is one of those municipal properties that's under facilities RFP that we're looking at. So with a short-term extension to the end of the year, I'm okay with that. But I do want us to, make decision going forward in the next year of what we're going to do with these properties. So I just wanted to, point out that this does have a life expectancy of just 6 months. And then in that time, hopefully in the interim, we're going to get some feedback on the analysis and we can make some decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Eve?
Thank you. I just want to point out this is one of 3 properties, 2 single-family homes on Clearview in the old PFARS building that we swapped with PFARS for their current beautiful site. And the idea was always to quote Councilwoman Michelle Lambros's favorite word, to monetize the properties or to use them in some way that enhances the municipality, whether we sell them or we find another use for them. And so during the pandemic, when the overflow housing was really, it still is kind of the pandemic, nobody's acting like it, but still the overflow housing for PFAR staff volunteers came in here. But I just want to, say along with Michelle that this is something that should be of short tenure, and we need to move forward with these properties and find some ultimate use for them, rather continue to lend them essentially for free to PFARS, which is a wonderful organization, but still the expectation with the land swap was that we would use this as compensation for the land that we gave to PFARS. So,
Right. Thank you, Eve. Mia?
Yeah, just echoing my colleagues and to honor the wishes of the previous council members who agreed to that swap with the idea that the properties would be used and that the municipality would be compensated. So I do hope that we will move forward on that. In the meantime, I understand that there's a young woman from PFARS who's living there, and she sounds like a model for what we would love all our young people to do. She's going to school and working for PFARS and serving the community, and I'm so glad that that she can use the space. I hope, but going forward, we do need to figure out what we're going to do with the properties. So yeah.
Thank you, Mia. And I actually want to recognize myself because I did have a question on this, and I'm not sure Bernie or who would be able to answer this. This is in the resolution, the second to last whereas. If you can just clarify, it states Princeton and PFARS have entered into discussions regarding a longer term use of the property by PFARS. Does this refer to the 6 months extension or longer term use in general?
I don't know if Trishka can answer that. I'm guessing that's a holdover from a prior version of that same resolution that had been before council, but perhaps Trishka can add to that.
Yeah, potentially, but I think it's also just referring, because my understanding is that there may be a desire on the part of PFARS to have a longer term use of the property you would not be able to do that pursuant to these types of temporary use and occupancy agreements. So I don't think it's committing the council to anything at all, but I think it's just more an indication of this is a placeholder while the municipality decides what it wants to do with this particular property or both properties.
Okay. So
I might have been able to express it slightly more clearly than that when I was drafting, but I was, sometimes you think you're being clear and then you're not.
Yeah, because I saw that and I wasn't sure what it meant, but also, wondering who was having these discussions because I wasn't. I don't know if
I believe my understanding is that PFARS had approached the administrator. I don't know, I can't speak for the administrator in terms of what discussions are taking place. I think what I was really trying to convey was this is just, let's just let them keep using the house until the end of the year, but we need to figure out a different solution.
Okay.
And to be clear, there was nothing discussed taking it beyond what the term of this current extension is.
Thank you, Bernie. That's what I wanted to clarify. Mia, is your hand still raised from before, or did you have an additional comment or question?
My question was just yours because I'm not aware of any council members being involved in that discussion. So just for the record, if that discussion, what we're passing reflects discussions that if they took place, did not take place with any council members, just for the record.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And I'll pass it back to Mayor Frida.
Okay, thank you. 22-199, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton authorizing change order number 1 in the not to exceed amount of $15,517, resulting in a total contract amount of $93,492 for the 2021 traffic striping and pavement marking contract with Straight Edge Striping. Is there a motion? Thank you, Leighton. David's got the second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. 22-200, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton authorizing 2022 contract for community development block grant tuition subsidy program with Princeton YMCA for HUD extremely low, very low, and low income households affected by COVID-19, not to exceed $50,000. Is it Letitia's got the motion? Michelle's got the second. Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle, you have a question?
I just want to say, I mean, this is a fabulous program, and I'm glad we're working with Mark. I know Maureen. I don't know if Maureen, is on the call, but just thank you for identifying these types of programs and moving forward with it. I just want to acknowledge that.
I'm here.
Hey, Maureen.
Maureen, is there anything you wanted to point out?
I think what I really like about this subsidy and this allocation is they're not going to use any of it for administration. They're going to use it all for subsidizing the tuition of their summer program. And it's going to be on a sliding scale. I don't know the formula, but the lower the income, the bigger the subsidy. So it's going to be great.
Thank you. It's
Thanks,
wonderful.
Maureen.
Appreciate it.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. 22-201, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton authorizing the 2022 contract for community development block grant eye care subsidy program with Alma Jacobson, OD, Family Eye Care and Contact Lenses, LLC, for HUD extremely low, very low, and low income households affected by COVID-19, not to exceed $57,000. Is there, I think Mia was the first, Letitia's got the second. David?
I just have a question. Is this an individual who's provided this service for our residents in the past, number one? And number two, I know this was a non-bid type of selection, but whether we've reached out to local eye doctors to see if they had an interest in providing the service.
Yeah, the Kim, our outreach coordinator, took the lead on this one. And I believe she did reach out to several different eye care providers. This one is in North Brunswick, but she has agreed to do the eye assessments in one of our Princeton-owned buildings. So either in the old senior building or even on the old Princeton Borough, Monument Drive.
Yeah.
So and she's got a staff who speaks Spanish as well. So she was, I think a very good fit for this program.
Great. Yeah, I did notice that she'd be coming to us, which is great. Would make a difference in my support for it if that weren't the case.
Thank you. Eve?
Yeah, I just want to express my support for this and for everyone who worked on it. Last meeting, we passed something for dental care.
Right.
And this is like, the trifecta. We have physical health, we have, the body, we have the mouth, we have these things often get overlooked, but they're so important for our local families to be able to have this care. I'm somewhat sad that we couldn't get someone local who also would provide Spanish speaking support to step up. No insinuation against this provider. I really appreciate having her here. But it was especially nice for the dental care to have a local provider step up. So, but I thank you for the outreach for all who did that. And, I'm excited to have this here in Princeton. So thank you.
Okay, Leighton?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Just want to give a shout out to Maureen Fullaway and any and everyone who had any part in helping us better serve the underserved. Princeton is getting better day by day, and is appreciated by those who need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you, Leighton.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen.
You're very welcome. Thanks for supporting it.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, now we've officially supported it.
Aye.
All right, 22. Maureen, was that the last one for you?
That's it.
Okay, thank you very much for hanging out till we got to that point.
Okay. Good night.
Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
22-202, resolution of the mayor and council of Princeton authorizing a supplemental professional services agreement in the not to exceed amount of $157,075 for additional services related to the Witherspoon Street Improvement Project, Phase 2, Green Street to Lee Avenue. Is there a motion? Michelle, thank you. Mia's got the second. All in favor, say aye.
I have a
Sorry.
question.
Go ahead.
I also have a question. Aren't we, didn't we apply for a grant for this?
We did. But this is, well, Deanna, you want to speak to that? I'm sorry, I'm just jumping in.
We did apply for the federal earmark for this, and they typically work in a reimbursable fashion. So this is for the final design services to get the project ready to go out for construction.
So do we, have we announced that? I think it would be great for our public to know that actually that money is going to be coming to the town.
We don't know yet. We don't
It
have
hasn't
a-
been awarded yet.
It hasn't been awarded. It's been submitted by Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman's office as a possible earmark, but it has to go to House Appropriations Committee before it's awarded. Has not been awarded yet. So the budget has to be signed off on, and then the president needs to sign the budget.
Okay, but we made it. We made it.
Made the cut.
We made the cut, right?
Bonnie's to Bonnie's list. Yes.
Okay.
Very fortunately. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
David?
Yeah, and I think I've asked this question before, so I think I know the answer in other settings, but this is a pretty big change order. Is it just because the original contract was a 1-year period and this is taking it into the second year? Are we on budget in terms of what our expected design costs were going to be?
Well, we did have overruns on meetings and the conceptual phase because of the time period needed to prepare various concepts with bike lanes and the bike pedestrian access through the corridor. So that was unexpected in the original proposal. We've also added in sanitary sewer improvements that were not in the original proposal. There is geotechnical services as well. So those all added on to what was originally intended as a kind of a road and a storm sewer design project.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Okay. 22203, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing a contract award to Waters and Bugby, Inc. in the amount of $25,535 for the purpose of repairing the public sanitary sewer on Wheatsheaf Lane. Is there a motion on that? David, thank you. Mia's got the second. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Okay. 22204, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton awarding professional services agreement to John M. Scaganelli and Scar somebody and Hollenbeck LLC for special environmental legal services not to exceed $75,000. Is there a motion? Thank you, David. Eve's got the second. And see, my eyes are going this way, so I'm reading Mia's name as I'm trying to focus on Eve raising her hand. I get it right eventually. Come on. And then anyway, so we have the motion second. Any questions?
I was just going to comment, this is cheap compared to what these guys typically cost us. The environmental attorneys it's crazy costs.
Yeah, it's a good point. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. Okay. We're through all the resolutions and we're up to the consent agenda.
Wasn't there one thing that was going to be removed from the consent agenda?
On the consent agenda that we're going to vote on, it's removed.
That was removed. Yeah.
The
It was
EDC
removed.
taken off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll. Yeah.
Oh, I thought so it wasn't removed to consider
No.
independently, it was removed altogether.
Yeah. It wasn't
Okay, I
correct.
didn't understand. Thanks.
All right. So just a real brief, the consent agenda is paying our bills, an amendment to a legal contract. Let me see here. Approving the Governor's Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Leadership Grant, alcoholic beverage licenses, pole banners, an extension on a couple projects. If everybody's good with them, someone could move the consent agenda. Eve, thank you very much. Leighton's got the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Would someone named David like to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move that we adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I was worried there somebody wasn't going to second that. Thank you, Michelle. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the public.
Aye.
Thank you to all staff on, and everybody have a great night.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Thank
evening,
you.
everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay.